This is about the moment my mother stood in a university auditorium with 2,000 people and watched my aunt receive the standing ovation during my valedictorian speech while her hands trembled against her program, realizing she'd lost both her daughters, one to addiction, one to a life she'd never be part of. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it started. I was 15 when my parents decided I was disposable. My name is Maya Reyes, and I had a twin sister named Victoria. We were born 4 minutes apart in a Vancouver hospital on a February morning, but those 4 minutes might as well have been 4 years. Victoria came first, screaming and pink and perfect. I came second, quiet and blue, my cord wrapped around my neck. The nurses said I almost didn't make it. Maybe that's why Mom always looked at me like she was waiting for me to disappear. Victoria was everything I wasn't. She had this effortless charm that made adults lean in when she talked, made teachers excuse late assignments, made our parents light up when she walked into a room. She was on the volleyball team, had a boyfriend by grade 9, always knew exactly what to say at family dinners. I was the weird one. The one who spent lunch periods in the library, who got anxious at parties, who Mom introduced as our other daughter Maya, our other daughter, like I was the backup, the spare. Dad wasn't much better. He'd ask Victoria about her games, her friends, her plans. When he looked at me, it was like he was trying to remember who I was. "How's school, kiddo?" Same question every time. He never waited for the answer. I learned to be invisible. It was easier that way. The pattern was consistent throughout our childhood. Victoria's volleyball trophies lined the mantel. My honor roll certificates stayed in a drawer. Victoria got a new phone for her birthday. I got her old one. Victoria wanted to go to a concert. Dad drove 2 hours. I needed a ride to a science competition. "Can't you take the bus, Maya?" I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't care. I was lying, but I managed. I kept my head down, got good grades, stayed out of their way. I had my books, my debate club, my plans for university. I could survive 3 more years, then I'd be free. Then May 12 happened. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had debate practice until 6, working on our provincial tournament prep. Our coach, Miss Patterson, had us running drills for 2 hours straight. I was exhausted when I finally got home around 7. The house was quiet when I walked in, too quiet. Victoria was sitting at the kitchen table, her face blotchy and red. Mom was pacing. Dad stood with his arms crossed, and when he looked at me, his expression made my stomach drop. "Maya," his voice was flat, "we need to talk." I set my backpack down slowly. "What's wrong? Where were you today?" Mom demanded. "Debate practice. Miss Patterson kept us late because before that I blinked. School, then I came straight to practice." "Why?" Victoria let out this choked sob, and Mom immediately went to her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's okay, honey, we know." "Know what?" My heart was pounding now. "What's going on?" Dad pulled something from his pocket, a small plastic bag with white powder inside. "Do you want to tell us what this is?" The world tilted. "I don't." "I've never seen that before." "It was in your room," Mom said. Her voice was shaking. "Hidden in your closet." "That's not possible. I don't do drugs." "I've never." "Victoria told us everything," Dad interrupted, "about how you've been stealing her things, selling her jewelry to buy this garbage." I turned to Victoria. She was crying, but she wouldn't look at me. "Vic, what are you talking about?" "I never." "My gold bracelet," she whispered. "The one Grandma gave me, it's gone." "And your drawer, it's full of cash, Maya. Where did you get that money?" "What cash?" "I don't have any." "We found it," Mom said. $240 hidden under your clothes." My mind was racing, trying to make sense of this. I've been saving my allowance. I was going to buy a new laptop for university. "Don't lie to us," Dad's voice cracked like a whip. "Victoria saw you. She saw you going through her jewelry box last week." I wasn't. "I never touched her jewelry." I looked at Victoria, pleading. Tell them you're lying," but she just shook her head, tears streaming. "I wanted to give you a chance to admit it. I thought maybe if I confronted you privately, but then I found the drugs and I couldn't keep covering for you anymore." "Covering for me? You're making this up." "None of this is true." "Enough." Dad's voice was cold, colder than I'd ever heard it. "We're not stupid, Maya. The evidence is right here." "What evidence?" "Some powder that could be anything." "Money from my allowance." Victoria's lying. "Why would your sister lie?" Mom's eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. "Why would she make this up?" "I don't know, but I didn't do this. I swear I didn't do this." Dad shook his head slowly. "You know what hurts the most? Not the drugs, not the stealing, it's the lying. Looking us right in the eye and lying." "I'm not lying. I was at school." "Then debate practice." "Miss Patterson can confirm." "Miss Patterson confirmed you were at practice," Mom said. "But that doesn't mean you weren't in Victoria's room before school. That doesn't explain the cash, the drugs." I felt like I was drowning. Please just listen to me. I didn't do any of this." Victoria's setting me up. Stop it, Victoria sobbed. Just stop. I'm trying to help you and you're making it worse. Help me, you're lying about me. Victoria stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I saw you, Maya. I saw you with Jake Henriksen behind the gym 2 weeks ago. He's a dealer, everyone knows it. My blood went cold. I had talked to Jake Henriksen behind the gym. He'd asked to borrow my chemistry notes because he was failing. We'd talked for maybe 5 minutes. But the way Victoria said it, the way Mom and Dad's faces hardened, I was helping him with homework, I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. Chemistry homework. Dad's laugh was bitter. Is that what they're calling it now? Call Miss Patterson, call the school, check my locker, my backpack, anything. You won't find drugs because I don't use them. We already found them, Mom said, gesturing at the bag on the table. Those aren't mine. The conversation went in circles for another hour. Every explanation I gave, they had a counter for. The money, I couldn't prove it was from allowance, I'd never kept receipts. Victoria's bracelet, I didn't even know it was missing until that moment. Jake Henriksen, why would an honors student need chemistry notes from someone who'd never scored above a C in her life? By the time Dad finally spoke again, it was past 9. Victoria had stopped crying. She sat there quiet, occasionally wiping her eyes, playing the concerned sister perfectly. Here's what's going to happen, Dad said. You're grounded indefinitely. No debate club, no library, no friends, school and home, that's it. Dad, the provincial tournament is in 3 weeks. I'm the lead speaker, should have thought of that before you started using. I'm not using, phone now, he held out his hand. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hands shaking. He took it without looking at me. We're scheduling a drug test for tomorrow, Mom added. If it comes back clean, we'll reconsider, a tiny spark of hope. Fine, test me. It'll be clean. And you're going to write an apology to your sister, Dad continued, for violating her trust, for stealing from her, for putting this family through hell. The spark died. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do, Dad's face darkened. Then you can spend the weekend thinking about it in your room. No TV, no computer, no books. No books, that almost hurt more than everything else. How am I supposed to study? Your textbooks are fine, everything else we're confiscating. Maybe some time alone will help you understand the severity of what you've done. I looked at each of them, Dad arms crossed, immovable, Mom crying quietly, one hand still on Victoria's shoulder. And Victoria meeting my eyes for just a second before looking away. In that second I saw it, the smallest flicker of something, not guilt, satisfaction, she'd planned this, all of it. But I couldn't prove it. Standing there in that kitchen with that bag of powder and my parents' disappointment pressing down on me like a physical weight, I had nothing. No evidence, no witnesses. Just my word against my golden sister's tears. Go to your room, Dad said. We'll discuss this more tomorrow after your test. I went upstairs, my legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. Inside my room, I turned on the light and stopped cold. My drawers were open. My closet had been searched, clothes pulled out and shoved back carelessly. My bookshelf was in disarray. They'd torn through everything, looking for more evidence of a crime I didn't commit. I sat on my bed, trying to breathe normally, trying to think. The drug test would be clean, it had to be. I'd never touched drugs in my life. Once they saw that, they'd have to believe me, they'd have to realize Victoria was lying. Except a cold thought crept in, what if the test wasn't clean? What if Victoria had found a way to contaminate it somehow? She'd already planted drugs in my closet, stolen her own bracelet, fabricated an entire story. What was one more step? I needed to talk to someone, Miss Patterson maybe, or my debate partner Carlos, someone who knew me, who could vouch for my character, but my phone was gone. My computer was in the living room, they'd take that too when they did their confiscation sweep. I was completely isolated, a knock on my door, I didn't answer but it opened anyway. Victoria slipped inside, closing it quietly behind her. Get out, I said. She leaned against the door, her face no longer blotchy, the tears were gone. I need you to understand something. Understand that you're a psychopath? I'm not the psychopath. Her voice was calm, cold. I'm just done being the disappointing daughter. I stared at her. What are you talking about? You're the favorite. You've always been the favorite. Was, she corrected, past tense. Until you started bringing home those debate trophies. Until your name started appearing in the school newsletter every week. Until Dad looked at your report card last semester and actually smiled. That happened once was enough. She moved further into the room and I instinctively shifted back on my bed. Do you know what Mom said to me last month? She said, maybe you should ask Maya for study tips from you. Like you were suddenly the standard I should aspire to. So you framed me for drug possession because Mom made one comment. It wasn't one comment, it was a pattern, I could see it starting. You were becoming interesting to them. The quiet girl was finding her voice and they were starting to listen. She sat down at my desk chair, completely at ease. I couldn't let that happen, my mind was reeling. You're insane. I'm strategic, there's a difference. She picked up a pen from my desk, twirled it between her fingers. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take the drug test tomorrow and it's going to come back clean, just like you think. But then, in a few weeks, they'll find something else. Maybe pills in your backpack. Maybe you'll come home with dilated pupils because I slipped something into your water bottle. Little things building a pattern. They won't believe, they already believe, she interrupted. That's the beauty of it, the seed is planted. Every time you defend yourself, you look more guilty. Every time you accuse me, you look more desperate. She stood up, walked to my door. You should have stayed invisible, Maya. You were good at that. She left, closing the door with a soft click. I sat there in the wreckage of my room, my whole body shaking. This wasn't just about framing me for one incident. This was systematic, long-term. Victoria had thought this through, planned for contingencies, set up a framework to destroy me piece by piece, and there was nothing I could do about it. The drug test came back clean, just as I'd known it would. I watched Mom's face when she got the call Friday afternoon, saw the brief flicker of confusion before she smoothed it away. That's good, she said, hanging up. That's good, Maya, so you believe me now? She didn't answer right away. The test being clean doesn't explain the drugs we found or the money. Or what Victoria saw, because Victoria lied. Stop. Dad came into the kitchen, still in his work clothes. Your sister has no reason to lie about this. Except she does. She told me. Told you what? Mom asked. I hesitated. If I repeated what Victoria had said, how would it sound? My sister came to my room and admitted to an elaborate conspiracy to frame me. No proof, no witnesses, just my word, which they'd already decided was worthless. Nothing, I said finally. Never mind. The grounding continued. I went to school, came straight home. No debate club. Miss Patterson called the house, tried to advocate for me, explained how important I was to the team. Dad thanked her politely and said family came first. We had to make sure I got back on track. Back on track from what? A crime I didn't commit, but no one was listening. At school, Victoria had started a whisper campaign. Nothing overt, she was too smart for that, just quiet comments to her friends. Worried observations about changes she'd noticed in me, how I'd been distant lately, moody, secretive. By the end of the second week, half my grade thought I was on drugs, the other half thought I was dealing. Carlos tried to talk to me about it during lunch, and I saw the doubt in his eyes even as he said he believed me. Look, if you need help, he started. I don't need help. I need people to believe me. I do believe you, he said, but he didn't meet my eyes when he said it. I stopped trying to defend myself after that. What was the point? The second incident happened exactly 3 weeks after the first. I came home from school to find Mom waiting in the kitchen, her face pale. Mrs. Chen called, she said. Mrs. Chen, our elderly neighbor. She said she saw you climbing in through your bedroom window this morning around 6. What? I left through the front door like always. She was very certain. Said she was up early watering her plants and saw you clearly. She's mistaken, or she saw someone else, or I stopped, understanding flooding through me. She saw Victoria. We were identical twins. From a distance, from Mrs. Chen's window next door, there would be no way to tell us apart. Why would Victoria climb into her own window? Mom asked tiredly. To make it look like I was sneaking out, Mom just shook her head. Go to your room. Your father will want to talk to you when he gets home. I went upstairs and checked my window. Sure enough, there were scuff marks on the sill, dirt on the carpet below, fresh. Victoria had staged this, probably when she'd left for school early that morning for volleyball practice. That evening, Dad added another month to my grounding and took away my textbooks. School books only, he said. From school, you can do your homework and nothing else. I stopped arguing. What was the point? The thing about systematic destruction is that it's cumulative. Each incident, each lie, each manufactured piece of evidence built on the last. By mid-June, 2 months after Victoria's initial accusation, the story in my house was set in stone. I was a troubled teen who'd gotten involved with drugs. Who was lying and manipulating and stealing to support a habit I swore I didn't have. Clean drug tests didn't matter. They just meant I was being careful. Good behavior didn't matter. I was trying to get them to lower their guard. Denying Victoria's accusations didn't matter. Of course an addict would lie. I was trapped in a narrative I couldn't escape, written by a sister who'd perfected the role of concerned family member. She brought Mom articles about teenage drug use. Suggested family counseling, cried about how hard it was to watch her twin sister destroy herself, and through it all she smiled at me. Small, private smiles when our parents weren't looking. Smiles that said I won. June became July. School ended. Victoria went to volleyball camp for 2 weeks. I stayed home, still grounded, watching summer pass through my bedroom window. When Victoria came back, tanned and happy with stories about the friends she'd made and the colleges recruiting her, Mom and Dad hung on every word. I sat at the dinner table, pushing food around my plate, invisible again, except I wasn't invisible anymore. I was visible in the worst possible way as the family problem. The daughter they worried about, the twin who'd gone wrong. That night lying in bed, I made a decision. I couldn't fight this, I couldn't win. Victoria had outmaneuvered me at every turn, and my parents believed every word she said. I could spend the next 3 years in this house, grounded and suspected and slowly going crazy. Or I could leave. Not physically, I was 15, I had nowhere to go, but mentally, emotionally, I could check out. I could give them the invisible daughter they used to prefer. I could stop defending myself, stop trying to make them see the truth, stop caring whether they believed me. I could focus on the only thing I had left, getting out, 3 more years of high school. Then university, far away, somewhere they couldn't touch me. I'd get scholarships. My grades were still perfect despite everything. I'd build a life they'd never be part of. They wanted a troubled daughter, fine, they could worry, but I'd stop giving them anything real. No more tears, no more arguments, no more desperate attempts to prove my innocence. I'd become exactly what Victoria had tried to make me, a stranger in my own family, just one who was counting down the days until she could leave for good. September came, junior year started. I moved through it like a ghost, speaking only when spoken to, keeping my grades high but my profile low. Victoria thrived as always, new boyfriend, volleyball captain, college scouts watching her games. At home, an uneasy truce settled over us. My parents stopped searching my room every week, stopped lecturing me every night. The grounding technically continued, but they'd stopped enforcing it rigorously. I think they were tired. I know I was. I'd learned to forge Dad's signature on permission slips, so I rejoined debate club in secret. Miss Patterson never asked questions, just welcomed me back and worked around my restricted schedule. We had a new coach too. She'd gotten promoted to department head, but she'd made sure Coach Morrison knew my situation. He pretended not to notice when I had to leave tournaments early or missed practices. I'd officially told my parents were study groups. Carlos knew something was deeply wrong but had stopped pushing. We'd partnered up again, and during our practice sessions, he'd sometimes just look at me with this sad expression, like he was watching someone slowly disappear. Maybe he was. The second year of Victoria's campaign, because that's what it was, a campaign, was more subtle than the first. She'd learned that big dramatic reveals made my parents briefly question things. So instead, she focused on small erosions. My clothes started disappearing from the dryer, turning up later in weird places, the garage, the basement, once in the backyard. "You must have put them there during one of your episodes," Victoria would say with concern, and my parents would exchange worried looks. Episodes? I didn't have episodes. But Victoria had planted that word carefully, watered it with manufactured evidence, and now it had taken root. Money went missing from Mom's purse, small amounts, $10 here, 20 there. Never enough to cause real alarm, but enough to notice. Enough for Mom to start hiding her wallet. Enough for the quiet conversations I wasn't supposed to hear about kleptomania and compulsive behaviors. I stopped defending myself. What was the point? Every denial just made me look more guilty. Every explanation sounded more desperate. So I stayed silent, and my silence was taken as admission. In October of junior year, something shifted. Victoria came home from a party with glassy eyes and unsteady hands. I was in the kitchen getting water when she stumbled in through the garage door, giggling to herself. She stopped when she saw me, and for a moment we just stared at each other. She was high, actually genuinely high on something. I could see it in her pupils, hear it in the way her words slurred slightly when she said, "You gonna tell? I should have." Maybe a better person would have run to get Mom and Dad, would have seized this opportunity to prove that Victoria wasn't perfect, that she was capable of exactly what she'd accused me of. But I just looked at her, this stranger wearing my sister's face, and felt nothing but tired. "No," I said, "I'm not going to tell." She blinked, confused. "Why not?" "Because it won't matter. They'll find a way to blame it on me anyway." I set down my glass. "Get yourself to bed, drink some water. Try to be functional by morning." I went back upstairs, leaving her swaying in the kitchen doorway. The next morning, she was fine. Perfect Victoria, eating breakfast with a smile, asking Mom about her day. If she remembered our interaction, she didn't show it, but something had changed. A line had been crossed. Victoria had gotten her first taste of the life she'd accused me of living, and based on the way she started coming home late more often. The way certain friends' names appeared more frequently in her conversations, it wasn't her last. I watched it happen with a strange detachment. The golden daughter discovering parties, discovering boys who weren't her clean-cut volleyball player boyfriend. discovering that rules didn't really apply when you had parents who trusted you implicitly. By November, she was high at least twice a week. She'd perfected the art of the casual cover story, studying at Sarah's house, extra practice for regionals, working on a group project. Mom and Dad never questioned it. Why would they? Victoria didn't use drugs. I was the one with the problem. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so bleak. Christmas came and went. I got practical gifts, clothes, school supplies, a graphing calculator. Victoria got a laptop, concert tickets, a promise of a car when she turned 16 in February. 4 minutes apart, but we might as well have lived in different worlds. I'd stopped marking time by calendar dates. Instead, I counted down in milestones. Tests passed, semesters completed, transcript entries added. Every A was another brick in the bridge I was building out of this house. Every debate trophy, hidden in Miss Patterson's office because I couldn't bring them home, was proof I still existed outside this family's narrative. At night, I'd lie in bed and imagine university. I'd applied to schools 3,000 miles away, Boston, New York, North Carolina. Anywhere that wasn't Vancouver, wasn't this house, wasn't within driving distance of parents who'd stopped seeing me years ago. February came, Victoria turned 16. There was a party, not a big one. She was being responsible, which made Dad proud. 15 friends, pizza, movies in the basement. I stayed in my room. Around midnight, I heard someone on the stairs. My door opened and Victoria slipped in, backlit by the hallway light. She was drunk. Not stumbling, not like October, but enough that I could smell it on her breath when she sat on the edge of my bed. "I don't hate you," she said. I didn't respond. I mean, I did for a while. "When you started being good at things, but now," she trailed off, picking at my comforter. "Now I don't feel anything. Isn't that weird?" "Victoria, you're drunk." "Go to bed. I'm not that drunk." She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a second she looked almost sad. "Do you hate me?" The honest answer was complicated. Did I hate her? Or did I hate what she'd done? Or did I just feel the same nothing she apparently felt? "No," I said finally. "I don't think about you enough to hate you." It was cruel, but it was true. I'd spent the last 10 months building walls, and Victoria was on the other side of them. She flinched. "That's worse. You should go. Your friends will notice you're gone." She stood up, swayed slightly, caught herself on my doorframe. For what it's worth, I thought they'd figure it out. I thought Dad would see through it, or Mom would find the bracelet where I hid it, or the drug test would be enough. I thought. She shook her head. I don't know what I thought, but they didn't figure it out. No, she was quiet for a moment, and now it's been too long. If I told them the truth now, they'd never forgive me. "So you're just going to let them keep thinking I'm the screwed up one? Would you believe me if I tried to tell them the truth now?" After everything, she laughed, bitter and sharp. "Besides, you're leaving anyway. 2 more years and you'll be gone, and none of this will matter." She left before I could respond, pulling my door closed behind her. I lay there in the dark, her words echoing. 2 more years. 730 days. It felt like forever and no time at all. Somewhere downstairs, her party continued. Music and laughter and the sound of people who had no idea that upstairs, 2 sisters who'd shared a womb couldn't share anything else. I rolled over, pulled my blanket up, and started counting down again. 730 days. I could survive that. I had to. Spring semester of junior year brought a strange, hollow routine. I'd perfected the art of existing without participating. At school, I was present but unreachable. At home, I was a polite stranger. Teachers worried but didn't push. My parents had stopped worrying entirely, or maybe they just accepted their version of who I was. In March, Miss Patterson pulled me aside after practice. "Maya, I need to talk to you about something." She closed her office door, gestured for me to sit. I got a call from the guidance counselor. "She's concerned about your college applications." "My grades are fine." "Your grades are perfect, but Mrs. Rodriguez says you haven't come in for any college counseling sessions. You haven't asked for recommendation letters. You haven't joined any official clubs or activities that she knows about." Because my parents thought I was grounded. Because everything I did in secret. Because my transcript looked like a ghost's. Good grades, no life. "I'll handle it," I said. "Maya," Miss Patterson's voice was gentle. "I know something's wrong at home. I've known for months. You don't have to tell me what it is, but you need to let someone help you. There's nothing to help with. I just need to get through the next year and a half. And then what? You think you can just walk away from whatever this is and be fine?" I met her eyes. "I don't need to be fine. I need to be gone." She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw her making a decision. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to write you a recommendation letter. Coach Morrison will write one too. We'll document your debate achievements through the school, make sure they're on record even if they're not on your official transcript. And you're going to come to my office during lunch twice a week, and we're going to work on your applications together. Miss Patterson, you don't have to. Yes, she said firmly. I do. Because in 20 years of teaching, I've seen a lot of bright kids get lost in family dysfunction, and I'm not letting that happen to you. Something cracked in my chest. Some small piece of the wall I'd built, I blinked fast, willing the tears back. Thank you, I whispered. She squeezed my shoulder. You're going to make it out, Maya. And when you do, you're going to be extraordinary. I wanted to believe her. April brought an unexpected development. Victoria got caught, not by our parents, never by them, but by her boyfriend's mother, who found them in his basement with a bottle of vodka and what looked like cocaine. Mrs. Patterson, no relation to my debate coach, called our house, furious, demanding to know what kind of family allowed their daughter to behave this way. I was doing homework when I heard Dad answer the phone, heard his voice shift from polite to confused to angry. Victoria doesn't drink, he said. Then after a pause, there must be some mistake, but Mrs. Patterson was insistent. She'd seen what she'd seen. She was considering calling the police. Dad hung up. I heard him call for Mom, heard their low, urgent conversation, heard Victoria's name over and over, then it must be Maya. My pencil stopped moving. Think about it, Dad was saying. They're identical. Mrs. Patterson saw her from behind, heard Jacob call her by name, but what if it was Maya pretending to be Victoria? She's done things like this before, trying to make her sister look bad, but Jacob would know the difference, Mom said, though she sounded uncertain. Would he? In a dark basement, if she said she was Victoria, they haven't been dating that long. I sat frozen at my desk, listening to them construct a narrative where I was the villain again, where I'd somehow impersonated my sister to ruin her reputation. It was insane, it was impossible, it was exactly what they wanted to believe. Victoria came home an hour later. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, fast and panicked. She went straight to her room, slammed the door. 5 minutes later, Mom knocked. I heard murmured conversation through the wall. Our rooms shared a thin barrier. I pressed my ear against it, catching fragments. Not me, I swear. We know, honey. Maya must have. Don't worry, they were letting her off completely, Mrs. Patterson had seen Victoria, actual Victoria, with drugs and alcohol, and somehow this too was becoming my fault. I waited until the house was quiet, until I heard Mom and Dad's bedroom door close. Then I slipped out of my room and went downstairs. The vodka bottle was in the trash, poorly hidden under some newspapers. I pulled it out, checked the label, expensive. Not something I could afford even if I'd wanted to. I took a photo with my school-issued laptop's camera, one of the few pieces of technology I had left, dated and time-stamped. Then I put the bottle back, evidence, just in case I ever needed it. Not that it would matter, evidence never mattered in this house, but having it made me feel slightly less powerless. The rest of April passed in a strange tension. Victoria was subdued, quieter than usual. She stopped coming home high, stopped going out as much. Playing the reformed troubled teen, or rather, playing the good sister who'd been wrongly accused because of her troubled twin. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. In May, something happened that I didn't expect. Grandma Ray's dad's mother came to visit. She lived in Toronto and usually only came out for major holidays, but she'd decided on a surprise visit to check on her girls. Grandma had always been kind to me in a distant way. She sent the same gifts to both of us, asked the same polite questions, treated us as an interchangeable unit, but she was observant in a way my parents weren't. She arrived on a Saturday morning. I was at the kitchen table, working on a practice SAT test that Miss Patterson had given me. Victoria was still asleep. She'd been out late the night before at a study group. Maya, Grandma set down her suitcase and looked at me, really looked. My God, when did you get so thin? I glanced down at myself. I had lost weight, stress did that. I'd stopped eating family dinners months ago, usually just grabbed something quick and ate in my room. I'm fine, Grandma. You're not fine, you look exhausted. She sat across from me, reached for my hand. What's going on in this house? Nothing. Everything's good. Don't lie to your grandmother. Her voice was sharp. I've raised 4 children. I know what a troubled house looks like. Mom appeared in the doorway. Ma. We didn't know you were coming today. That was the point. Grandma didn't let go of my hand. Wanted to see my family as they actually are, not dressed up for company. Dad came down, surprised and pleased. There were hugs, exclamations, the bustle of getting her settled in the guest room. Through it all, Grandma kept glancing at me with this worried expression. Lunch was awkward. Victoria had woken up, come down all smiles and charm. She chattered about school, about volleyball, about her college prospects. Mom and Dad beamed. And what about you, Maya? Grandma asked. What are you planning for college? She's still figuring things out, Dad said before I could answer. I can speak for myself, I said quietly. I'm looking at schools on the East Coast. Boston University maybe, or NYU. Mom's fork paused halfway to her mouth. That's very far away, that's the point. Silence fell over the table. Victoria was staring at her plate. Mom looked stricken, Dad's jaw was tight. Grandma looked between all of us, reading the currents I'd thought were invisible. Well, she said slowly, those are excellent schools, very prestigious. You must have worked very hard to be considering them. I have. Maya's grades are good, Dad said, like he was conceding something. We've never had concerns about her academics, just about everything else apparently. After lunch, Grandma asked me to take a walk with her, just us. Mom started to object, but Grandma shut her down with a look. We walked to the park 3 blocks away, sat on a bench overlooking the playground. For a while, neither of us spoke. Tell me what happened, she said finally. I don't know what you mean. Maya, I may be old, but I'm not blind. Something's broken in that house, and you're on one side of the break while everyone else is on the other. I watched a kid on the swings, pumping higher and higher. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. And maybe it was because she was the first person in this family to say that in months. Maybe it was because I was tired of carrying it alone. Maybe it was because she was leaving in a few days anyway, and what could it hurt? I told her. Not everything, not Victoria's midnight confession, not the extent of the campaign against me. But the basics, the drugs planted in my room, the accusations, the grounding that never ended, the way my parents looked at me now like I was something broken they didn't know how to fix. Grandma listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. And Victoria, she asked, what does she say about all this? That she saw what she saw. That she's worried about me, that she's trying to help. Do you use drugs, Maya? No. Have you ever? No. She studied my face. I believe you. Those 3 words hit me harder than I expected. I'd heard I believe you from Miss Patterson, from Coach Morrison. But hearing it from family, even distant family, made something in my chest ache. It doesn't matter if you believe me, I said. They don't. Your parents are good people, but they're not perfect. They have blind spots. She paused, especially when it comes to Victoria. She's always been their favorite. I know, I've seen it, Grandma sighed. Your mother had a difficult time with your birth. You were in the NICU for 3 days and she was terrified she'd lose you. I think some part of her built a wall around that fear, and the wall became distance. So she loved me less because she was afraid of losing me. Love isn't rational, sweetheart. And fear makes people do strange things. We sat there as the sun shifted, as the playground slowly emptied. Finally, Grandma stood. I can't fix this for you, she said. I wish I could, but I can't. But I want you to know something. When you leave for college, wherever you end up, you'll have money. I've been putting aside funds for both you and Victoria since you were born. Your parents don't know about it. It's from your grandfather's life insurance. It's enough for tuition, room, and board. Maybe not all 4 years, but enough to get you started and keep you independent. I stared at her. Grandma, I can't. Yes, you can. You need an escape plan, Maya. I can see it in your eyes. You're planning to run the second you turn 18, and I don't blame you, but you need resources, so take them. She squeezed my shoulder. And when you're settled, wherever you land, you call me. We'll get coffee, we'll talk, and we'll be family the way we should have been all along. I hugged her then hard and let myself cry for the first time in months. Grandma left 3 days later. Before she went, she had a private conversation with my parents. I don't know what she said, but afterward Mom looked troubled and Dad looked defensive. Things eased slightly. The grounding was officially lifted, though I was still expected to check in regularly. I could do debate again officially this time, small mercies, but the fundamental dynamic hadn't changed. I was still the problem child, Victoria was still the golden one, and in a little over a year I'd be free. Summer arrived, Victoria got her car, a used Honda Civic, but still. She got a summer job at the community center teaching volleyball to kids. Looked great on college applications, Dad said proudly. I got a job too, shelving books at the library. Minimum wage, but it was money that was mine, money I could save, money that represented hours when I didn't have to be home. Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor, started talking to me sometimes when I left for work. Small conversations about the weather, her garden, her cat. One day, she stopped me as I was unlocking my bike. I owe you an apology, she said. I blinked. For what? That morning, when I called your mother about someone climbing in the window, she looked uncomfortable. I realized later it must have been Victoria. I saw her leaving early the next week, same window, same everything, but by then I'd already caused trouble for you. It's okay, Mrs. Chen, it's not. I should have called your mother back, corrected my statement, but she trailed off ashamed. I didn't want to seem like a meddling old woman who couldn't tell her own neighbors apart. Really, it's fine. No, it's not. But thank you for saying so. She pressed something into my hand, a folded $20 bill. For your trouble, and Maya, you're a good girl. I hope your parents realize that before it's too late. She went back inside before I could refuse the money. I stood there on the sidewalk looking at the 20, thinking about all the small ways people had tried to help me. Miss Patterson, Coach Morrison, Grandma, Mrs. Chen. Little acts of kindness from people who saw something my own family couldn't. It helped. It didn't fix anything, but it helped. Senior year started in September with a strange energy. This was it, my last year in this house, in this city, in this life I'd been trapped in. Every day was one day closer to escape. I threw myself into applications. Miss Patterson and I had narrowed my list. Boston University, NYU, UNC Chapel Hill, Georgetown, and as a reach, Columbia, all far away, all excellent schools. All places where nobody knew about troubled Maya Reyes and her perfect twin sister. Victoria was applying too, but to state schools. UBC, University of Washington, maybe one California school as a stretch. She wanted to stay close, she said. Family was important. I wanted to laugh every time she said it, family, like we had won. In October, I took the SAT and scored a 1540. Miss Patterson actually hugged me when the results came in. This is it, she said. This is your ticket out. The same week, Victoria got recruited by 3 different colleges for volleyball. There was a small celebration at home. Dad ordered pizza, Mom bought a cake. I sat at the table eating my slice, watching them toast Victoria's future. Nobody mentioned my SAT score. I hadn't told them. What was the point? November brought early decision deadlines. I applied to Columbia. It was a long shot, but Grandma's words echoed in my head. You're going to be extraordinary. Maybe I could be. Maybe somewhere far away from here, I could figure out who I was without the weight of my family's disappointment. I also applied early action to BU and Georgetown. Safety schools, though calling them that felt ridiculous when they were both excellent universities. The waiting started, December dragged. School was fine. I was taking all AP classes, killing it in debate. We'd won regionals, were heading to provincials in January, but home was suffocating. Christmas loomed and I dreaded the forced family togetherness. Then on December 15th, something shifted. I came home from the library to find an ambulance in front of our house. My heart stopped. I dropped my bike, ran inside. Mom was in the living room crying. Dad was on the phone. EMTs were in the kitchen with Victoria. She was sitting at the table, pale and shaking, her eyes unfocused. One of the EMTs was checking her pulse while the other asked her questions she couldn't seem to answer. What happened? I asked. Mom just shook her head, crying harder. Dad hung up. His face was gray. She was at a party. Someone called 911 when she collapsed. They brought her home instead of the hospital because... He stopped, looking lost. Because of what? I pushed past him into the kitchen. The EMT looked up at me, saw my face, Victoria's face, and did a double take. Are you her sister? Twin. What happened to her? Looks like an overdose. MDMA, probably, maybe combined with alcohol. Her friend said she just went down mid-conversation. An overdose, Victoria. Actually, really, seriously overdosed. All those months of coming home high, of gradually increasing use, of thinking she was invincible because Mom and Dad trusted her implicitly. It had finally caught up. Is she going to be okay? Mom was beside me now, gripping my arm. She needs to go to the hospital, the EMT said. We can transport, but you'll need to sign. No hospital, Victoria mumbled. Her words were slurred. Fine, just need to sleep. Honey, you need to be seen by a doctor, the EMT said gently. No, she tried to stand, swayed, sat back down hard. Can't, Scouts College, can't have this on record. And there it was. Even now, even overdosing, Victoria was worried about her image. Her future, her prospects. The EMT looked at my parents. She's refusing transport. She's conscious and verbal, so legally we can't force her, but someone needs to monitor her through the night. If she loses consciousness, shows signs of seizure, has trouble breathing, anything, you call 911 immediately. Mom nodded, still crying. Dad looked shell-shocked. The EMTs left. Dad helped Victoria upstairs to her room. Mom followed, hovering, useless with worry. I stood in the kitchen, looking at the space where Victoria had been sitting. There was a puddle on the floor. She'd spilled water or maybe thrown up. The room smelled like sweat and fear. This was it. This was the moment everything could change. Victoria had actually, genuinely, undeniably done exactly what she'd accused me of. The evidence was irrefutable. EMTs had been called. There were witnesses. There was no way to spin this as my fault. Unless I went upstairs, stood outside Victoria's room. The door was cracked open and I could hear Mom's voice, soft and soothing. It's okay, baby, everyone makes mistakes. We'll figure this out. I'm sorry, Victoria was crying. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it was just supposed to be fun. SHH, it's okay. We're just glad you're safe. But what if the colleges find out? What if the Scouts? They won't. Dad's voice now firm. This was a private medical issue. Nobody needs to know. We'll handle it quietly. I stood there listening to them comfort her, reassure her, promise her that this wouldn't define her future. Not once did they mention the irony. Not once did they acknowledge that for the past 18 months, they'd believed I was doing exactly what Victoria had actually done. Not once did Dad say, maybe we should have believed Maya. Not once did Mom say, maybe we were wrong. They were going to bury this, sweep it under the rug, protect their golden daughter's future. And I was going to let them, not because I forgave them, not because I'd forgotten, but because in that moment I realized something. Their denial didn't matter anymore. In 6 months, I'd be leaving. In 6 months, their opinion of me would be irrelevant. I didn't need them to acknowledge the truth. I just needed to survive until graduation. I went to my room, closed the door, and pulled out my college applications. Columbia's essay stared back at me. Discuss a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. I started typing. The truth would come out eventually. Maybe not now, maybe not in this house, but somewhere, sometime, someone would believe me, and that would have to be enough. Victoria recovered. By the next morning, she was pale but functional, sitting at the breakfast table with a glass of water and a look of profound shame that would have been convincing if I hadn't known her better. Mom hovered, Dad looked stern but relieved, and I ate my cereal in silence watching the performance. We need to talk about what happened, Dad said finally. Victoria nodded, eyes down. I know. I messed up really badly. This isn't like you, Mom said, almost pleading, like she needed Victoria to confirm it was an aberration, not a pattern. It's not, I swear it's not. Victoria's voice cracked. There was this girl at the party and she was handing stuff out and everyone was doing it, and I thought just once wouldn't hurt. I thought I'd be fine. The lie was smooth. Practiced even just once, not the culmination of months of parties and pills and powder. Just a one-time mistake from a good girl who'd made a bad choice, and my parents bought it. Of course they did. You understand how serious this is, Dad said. You could have died. I know, tears now perfect and timely. I'm so sorry, I'll never do anything like that again. We need to set some new boundaries, Mom said. Curfews, check-ins. We should have been paying more attention. Actually, Victoria interrupted, I think I need to take responsibility for this myself. Maybe I should see someone, a counselor. To talk about why I made such a stupid choice. I almost choked on my cereal. The audacity of it, Victoria, suggesting therapy, taking control of the narrative before my parents could impose consequences. That's very mature of you, Dad said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. His daughter wasn't spiraling, she was self-aware, taking action, handling it. And maybe, Victoria continued, glancing at me briefly, it would help to know what Maya went through when she was struggling. So I can understand the warning signs, avoid going down that path. There it was. Even in her lowest moment, she found a way to remind them of my supposed failures. To position herself as the one learning from my mistakes I'd never made. I stood up, rinsed my bowl, and left the kitchen without a word. Behind me, I heard Mom say, she's been so distant lately. Can you blame her? Victoria said softly. It must be hard watching me mess up when she's worked so hard to turn things around. The narrative was already shifting. By the time it settled, Victoria's overdose would become a cautionary tale about peer pressure, about one mistake, about a good girl who'd stumbled but caught herself. And somehow I'd still be the troubled twin, the shadow that Victoria had narrowly avoided becoming. December became January. Provincial debate championships came and went. We placed second, which was enough to make Miss Patterson proud and Coach Morrison talk about nationals. I smiled for the team photo and felt nothing. College decisions started rolling in. Georgetown accepted me early action, so did BU. I stared at the acceptance letters, these pieces of paper that represented escape, and felt the first real hope I'd had in months. I didn't tell my parents, not yet. I'd wait until I heard from Columbia, make the decision, then present it as fait accompli. They couldn't stop me. I was 18 now as of February. Grandma's money would cover what scholarships didn't. I didn't need their permission or their approval. I just needed to run out the clock. Victoria, meanwhile, had started therapy. She went once a week, came home talking about processing and growth and self-awareness. Mom hung on every word, Dad nodded approvingly. Look how well she was handling this. Look how mature. The therapist suggested family sessions. I declined. Maya should really be part of this, the therapist, Dr. Sharma, said during one of the phone consultations Mom insisted on have. Columbia, I'd gotten into Columbia. Full scholarship too. They'd seen my financial need forms, the careful way I'd documented my situation without explaining it. Between Grandma's money and the financial aid package, I could afford it, all of it. 4 years in New York City, 2,900 miles from this house. I made it through the rest of my shift on autopilot, got home around 6 to find Mom cooking dinner and Victoria setting the table. Good day? Mom asked, not looking up from the stove. Yeah. Fine, I went upstairs, printed out the acceptance letter and put it in the folder with the others. 3 schools, 3 acceptances, 3 escape routes. I chose Columbia that night. Sent in my deposit, signed the housing forms, made it real, then I went downstairs for dinner. I got into Columbia, I said, setting my plate down. I'm going to New York in the fall. Silence. Mom's fork paused, Dad looked up from his phone, Victoria went very still. Columbia University, Dad said finally. Yes, in New York, yes, that's… Mom seemed lost for words. That's very far away, I know, and expensive, Dad added. I have a full scholarship and Grandma's money, I don't need anything from you. The words hung there sharp-edged. I don't need anything from you, Maya, Mom started, but I cut her off. I'm 18, I've made my decision. I'm leaving in August and I wanted you to know. We should discuss this as a family, Dad said. There's nothing to discuss, I'm going. Victoria was staring at her plate, her face unreadable. For once, she had nothing to say. This seems very sudden, Mom tried again. Maybe you should think about it more, consider schools closer to home. UBC has an excellent… I don't want to be close to home. I looked at each of them. I want to be as far away as possible. And now I will be. I left the table, went back upstairs and closed my door. Behind me, I heard the eruption, voices raised, Mom crying, Dad angry, Victoria saying something I couldn't make out. I didn't care. For the first time in 18 months, I truly didn't care. I was leaving, nothing else mattered. The next 3 months were tense. Mom tried several times to convince me to reconsider, to at least visit UBC, to think about what I'd be missing by going so far away. Your family is here, she said once. Exactly, I replied and watched her flinch. Dad took a different approach, silent disapproval. He'd look at my Columbia sweatshirt. I'd bought one the day after accepting with this tight expression, like I was betraying him personally by leaving. Victoria oscillated between ignoring me completely and trying to have sisterly moments. She'd knock on my door, ask about my plans, try to engage. I kept my answers short. You're really going through with this, she said one night in April, leaning against my doorframe. Yes, New York is expensive and dangerous. And you don't know anyone there? I'll figure it out, you're just running away. I looked up from packing. I'd started early, methodically sorting through what to take and what to leave behind. Yes, I am, and you're the reason why, she absorbed that. I tried to tell them after the overdose, I tried to say, don't, I cut her off. Don't pretend you suddenly grew a conscience. You got caught, that's all, and they let you off anyway, just like you knew they would. It's not that simple, it's exactly that simple. You framed me, you destroyed my relationship with our parents, and you got away with it. Now I'm leaving, and you get to live with what you did. They won't forgive you for this. For leaving like this? Good, I'm not looking for their forgiveness. I'm looking for a life where I don't have to think about any of you. She left after that. We didn't have another real conversation before graduation. Graduation came in June. I was valedictorian. My GPA had stayed perfect despite everything, and the administration had actually noticed. They asked me to give a speech. I almost said no, but Miss Patterson convinced me. You earned this, she said. Don't let them take it from you. So I wrote a speech, not the one they expected. The auditorium was packed, 2,000 people, families and friends and teachers. I saw my parents in the 3rd row, Dad in his good suit, Mom with her camera ready. And next to them, Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, who I barely knew. She'd driven up from Seattle for the ceremony. I saw Victoria in the audience too, sitting with her friends, her volleyball team. She'd graduated with honors, had a full ride to University of Washington for volleyball. Her future was set, golden and bright. I walked onto the stage, adjusted the microphone. Looked out at all those faces and I spoke, good evening. For those who don't know me, my name is Maya Reyes and I've been invisible for most of my life. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. This wasn't how valedictorian speeches started. I want to talk tonight about truth, about how we decide what's true and what isn't, about how we choose who to believe. When I was 15, someone I trusted accused me of something I didn't do. They had evidence, manufactured evidence, but evidence nonetheless. They had a story that made sense, and everyone believed them because, why wouldn't they? This person had never lied before. This person was trustworthy, likable, golden, and I was none of those things. I was quiet, awkward, easy to overlook, so when it came down to their word against mine, there was no contest. For 3 years, I lived in the shadow of that lie. I lost my family's trust. I lost my place in my own home. I lost the chance to be a normal teenager because I was too busy defending myself against accusations that kept multiplying, kept evolving, kept trapping me tighter. But here's what I learned. The truth doesn't need to be believed to be true. Facts exist independent of faith, and while I couldn't make anyone believe me, I could make them irrelevant. I'm standing here tonight because I decided that their opinion of me mattered less than my opinion of myself. I'm standing here because I chose to build a future out of the ruins of my present. I'm standing here because I survived. I paused, found my mother's face in the crowd. She was pale, gripping her program so hard it was crumpling. To my fellow graduates, some of you will face injustice. Some of you will be misunderstood, misjudged, or deliberately sabotaged by people you love. When that happens, you have a choice. You can spend your energy trying to make them see the truth, or you can spend it building a life where their blindness doesn't matter. Choose the latter, choose yourself. Choose survival first and revenge never, because living well, living freely, living authentically is the only revenge worth having. In 2 months, I'm going to Columbia University in New York City. I'm going alone, with money I saved myself and help from people who believed in me when my own family couldn't. I'm going to study political science, maybe law. I'm going to build a life that's entirely mine, and the person who lied about me, they'll still be here, still living with what they did. That's punishment enough. I looked at Victoria then. Just for a second, her face was white, her friends looking at her with questions in their eyes. Thank you to Miss Patterson, Coach Morrison, and my grandmother for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you to the teachers who judged me on my work, not on rumors. And thank you to everyone who showed me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to believe in you. Congratulations to the class of 2026. Whatever comes next, choose truth, choose yourself, and choose people who choose you back. I walked off the stage to scattered applause and shocked silence. The principal stood to do damage control to smooth over my unconventional speech. I didn't stay to hear it. In the hallway outside the auditorium, Aunt Linda found me. I barely recognized her. I'd only met her twice at distant family gatherings. Maya, she caught my arm. That speech, I know it was inappropriate. I'll probably lose the valedictorian honor, or it was brave. She pulled me into a hug and I went stiff with surprise. I had no idea. Your mother never said, but the way you talked about it about her, she pulled back, looked at me. I'm Linda, your aunt, and I should have been in your life more. I should have noticed something was wrong. It's not your fault. Maybe not, but I'm noticing now. She pressed a business card into my hand. I live in Seattle, that's my cell number. You call me when you get to New York, okay? You call me if you need anything. And if you want to spend holidays somewhere other than Vancouver, my door is open. I stared at the card, this unexpected lifeline. Thank you, don't thank me yet. Just promise you'll use it. I promise. She hugged me again, then went back into the auditorium. I heard my name called. They were presenting diplomas. I should go back in, walk across the stage, accept the piece of paper that said I'd survived high school, but I couldn't, not yet. I sat down on a bench in the hallway, still in my cap and gown, and let myself breathe. I didn't see my parents that night. They left the ceremony early, mom crying, dad furious. Victoria texted me once, was that really necessary? I didn't respond. Graduation parties happened without me. I spent the evening with Miss Patterson and Coach Morrison at a quiet restaurant, celebrating with the only people who'd actually helped me get here. You're going to be fine, Miss Patterson said, raising her glass of wine. More than fine, you're going to be extraordinary. I wanted to believe her. And for the first time, I thought maybe I could. August came faster than I expected. My room was packed in boxes, labeled and ready. I'd whittled my life down to what could fit in 2 suitcases and a backpack. Everything else was going to storage or getting donated. The night before I left, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a letter, handwritten in Victoria's careful script. Maya, I know you won't forgive me. I'm not asking you to. I just need you to know that I understand now what I did to you. Doctor. Sharma helped me see it, the jealousy, the insecurity, how I destroyed you to save myself. I don't have an excuse. Being afraid of being replaced isn't an excuse. Being 16 isn't an excuse. I made a choice to hurt you, and then I made 1,000 choices to keep hurting you, and I have to live with that. Mom and Dad still don't know the whole truth. I tried to tell them after your speech, and they didn't want to hear it. I think they know deep down, but admitting it would mean admitting they failed you. And they're not ready for that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry, and that I hope wherever you end up, whoever you become, you're happy. You deserve that more than anyone. Victoria, I read it twice. Then I put it back in the envelope and packed it in the bottom of my suitcase. Not forgiveness, not absolution, just acknowledgement. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. The next morning, Grandma picked me up. She'd flown in from Toronto specifically to drive me to the airport, refusing to let my parents do it. They'll make it about them, she said when she'd called to arrange it. This is your day. Your fresh start. Mom and Dad came out to say goodbye. It was awkward, stilted. Mom hugged me and whispered, please be safe. Dad shook my hand like I was a business associate. Victoria stayed in the house. I saw her watching from her bedroom window as Grandma loaded my bags into the car. "Ready?" Grandma asked. I looked back at the house one last time. 4 minutes after Victoria, I'd been born into this family. For 18 years, those 4 minutes had defined me, the second daughter, the spare, the one who didn't quite fit, but not anymore. "Ready?" I said. We drove away and I didn't look back. Epilogue: 4 years later, I stood in another auditorium. Columbia's graduation ceremony, Butler Library looming behind the stage. 2,000 people again, but this time they were here for me and my classmates, celebrating our achievements. I'd graduated magna cum laude with a degree in political science and a job offer from a civil rights law firm in Manhattan. I'd made friends, real ones, who knew my whole story and believed me without question. I'd built a life. Aunt Linda was in the audience, front row. She'd become the family I'd chosen, hosting me for holidays, flying out for important events, being the person I called when I needed advice or just someone to talk to. Grandma was there too, beaming with pride. She'd visited every semester, taken me to dinners, reminded me that I was loved. My parents weren't there, I hadn't invited them. Victoria had reached out once during my sophomore year. She was struggling at UW, had quit volleyball, was in therapy trying to understand why she'd sabotaged her own life along with mine. She wanted to apologize in person to try to rebuild something. I declined. Some bridges once burned aren't meant to be rebuilt. But I'd sent her a message: "I hope you find peace with what you did." I have, and I had. The anger had faded over 4 years of distance and therapy and building a self that had nothing to do with being Victoria's twin or my parents' daughter. I was just Maya now, just myself. The ceremony ended, caps flew into the air. I caught mine and looked around at my classmates, these people who'd become my chosen family. "Maya," Aunt Linda pushed through the crowd, pulling me into a hug. "I'm so proud of you. Thanks for being here. Nowhere else I'd be." She pulled back, looked at me seriously. "Your mother called me last week. She wanted to know if I was coming to this, if you'd be okay with her showing up." My stomach tightened. "What did you tell her?" I told her the truth. That you'd built a beautiful life without them, and maybe she should think about why that was necessary before she tried to insert herself back into it. How did she take that? Not well. "But Maya," Aunt Linda squeezed my hands. "She's starting to understand. It's too late and it doesn't change anything, but she's starting to see what she lost." What they both lost, I thought about that. About my mother standing in an auditorium 3,000 miles away, watching me not be there. Realizing she'd lost both daughters, one to addiction and poor choices, one to her own willful blindness. "Maybe someday," I said, "but not today." "Not today," Aunt Linda agreed. "Today is just for celebration." Grandma joined us and we went to dinner at my favorite restaurant in the village. We toasted to new beginnings, to chosen family, to survival and success. That night, alone in my apartment, a tiny studio in Washington Heights that was entirely mine, I pulled out Victoria's letter from 4 years ago. I'd kept it, moving it from dorm to apartment, never quite able to throw it away. I read it one last time, then I wrote my own letter. "Victoria, I got your apology. I've carried it with me for 4 years, trying to decide what to do with it. I'm not ready to forgive you, maybe I never will be. What you did shaped me in ways I'm still discovering, and not all of them are bad. I'm stronger, more independent, more careful about who I trust. But that doesn't make what you did okay. I hope you found help. I hope you've stopped hurting yourself and others. I hope you've learned that tearing someone else down doesn't build you up. I'm doing well, better than well. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do. And I got here despite you, despite them, despite everything. That's all I needed to say. I don't need a response. I don't need closure. I just needed you to know that I survived, and I'm happy, and that's more than enough." Maya, I sealed both letters in an envelope and put them in a box in my closet. Not to send, just to keep. Proof of where I'd been and how far I'd come. Outside my window, New York hummed with life, my life, the one I'd built from nothing. I'd been invisible once, disposable. The spare daughter, the problem child, the one who didn't quite fit. But I'd made myself visible, made myself necessary, made myself whole, and that was the best revenge I could have asked for.